Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of July 28th through August 3rd, and also a little bit of the month of August. Not a very active month, but more of a continuation of a deep retrograde of the outer planet cycles and them all getting closer together. And for the week, Venus is going to be the main star this week. Is changing signs and going into Cancer. And will also, that means, be hitting those three outer planets right away, right? That are all at the beginning of their signs. So that's the main things I'm going to be talking about this week, and then the monthly a little bit at the end. And so, just a little business first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do now on YouTube now for 6 or 7 years now. And if you have a YouTube account and you like what you see, I'd really like you to become a follower. And when you become a follower, you have to remember to turn your notifications on, or it won't notify you when the new blog comes up. And one of the things I am asking everyone every week is, since this is a free service, I ask you to pay it forward by passing the link on to somebody else. And even if you've done that before, you can find someone else to do that for me that would be great. That's the way I really like to get the blog to grow, is kind of like mouth to mouth, word of mouth. Feel like it's a much more authentic way. And also remember, the blog was a podcast long before it was a blog, and is still available on podcast. The podcast numbers have actually been going way up lately, so maybe some of you are making that switch over to that. But just look up Astrological Winds channel when you go to your podcast app, and you'll find it there. And it's an exact audio version of the same video that you're seeing on the YouTube channel, so you don't miss anything. And to me, that really frees you up, to be able to do, sometimes it's hard to fit everything in our lives. So, it's a time when you could be driving to work and you get to listen to the blog, or, taking a walk, walking the dog, or, going to the gym, and, give you something to do, like where you're not attached to the video. And remember, also, Astrological Winds channel does have its own Instagram page. If you become a follower there, you will see the link to the blog come up in your newsreel every week. And also, sometimes I do post other stuff, some of astrological stuff, sometimes some other stuff. And so you miss that if you don't check that out. And then remember, it's always available on the website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. And that's also where the menu is for all my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years. I would love to do your chart or any astrology work that you might have, or someone needs a reference, or if you know some group that's looking for a service. So check all that stuff out. And like I said, that's where you can find the blog, not only for this week, but past blogs for the last few months are there. So if you need to refer back to stuff, you can always check stuff out there. So thank you so much for all that. Thank you for tuning in. And we're at the end of July. We're halfway through the summer in the northern hemisphere here. We're getting deep into all those outer planets being retrograde. Mercury's been retrograde too. It's been really interesting watching the news cycle and some of the stuff from the past coming back, and really getting to leaders and important people in the world, things that they did in the past that they're having to deal with, and showing us how Mercury retrograde can make can make communications break down when things from the past come back that, haunt us and things like that. But anyway, this week is really about Venus stealing the show, right? And it starts today on Monday, when Venus and Chiron are in a sextile to one another. So Venus is really close to the end of Gemini. It's going into Cancer Wednesday, and Chiron is going retrograde this week on the same day, Wednesday. So Chiron's basically stationary, which means it's super strong right now. The effects of Chiron, anything that it hits, is very strong right now. And this is a really nice aspect to start the week with. This sends out a very healing vibe or energy to relationships. So it's a great time to talk to people about relationships, like any issues that have been like ongoing. This is a time where you can both sides can express their emotions well and get good reactions to that instead of defensive ones. Get ones that are workable, where you can actually come to some kind of agreement, and so it's really excellent energy for healing relationships, but also like gives us a really good eye for being creating healing environments too, environments that bring us learning, and bring out a nurturing and caring side of us, to people in relationships and environments. So like I said, Chiron is stationary now, so it's making this energy extra strong, as is Venus being in the final critical degrees of Gemini. So it's really like a time where we can be really sensitive to like what how we're saying things and how communication is going in relationships, and we can really make an impact on people right now, on each other, and bring very healing information into our relationships. So I really think that's a great one to work with this week. Then Wednesday, like I said, that's the day that Chiron will go retrograde at 27 degrees of Aries, getting close to the end of Aries, but it's an outer planet, right? So it's going to retrograde back for a number of months now into early next year, probably about 5 months, 4.5, 5 months, right? And then it will like go turn around in Aries again, but it's still gonna stay in Aries for a good year or two still. So we're near the end of Aries, where it's critical that we're learning the lessons that Chiron and Aries is bringing us. And I've said this over and over since it went into Aries years ago, that I really think it's a time where we have to be really self-responsible for our own healing. Like we really need to get over it and move forward, and take charge of our own healing. So over the next few months, we're going to get a reminder, like there's going to be like a lot of things to reflect upon, where we notice we've been hurt, or maybe we're challenging to us, or we hurt ourselves, or we allowed others to hurt us. And so this gives us a chance to kind of think about all that stuff again. And if we want to change that, if we want to change, the things that are hurting us, this gives us a time to reflect on new strategies to do that. And when Chiron goes direct, we can start to test those strategies out again. So Wednesday is also the big change of the week, when Venus goes into Cancer. And frankly, from my perspective, I really think that Venus in Cancer is really sweet. It's one of the signs that the goddess really likes to be in. I think she really feels very comfortable expressing her love and affection in Cancer towards her loved ones, which is so much a big part of what she likes to do. So I think, this is a time where people are very willing to give emotional support to the people they love. And it feels good. You get nurturing from that. It's really a healing kind of thing. It's like almost this very like supportive mothering energy towards one another, that can be very nurturing. And a lot of things, times when Venus in Cancer, speaking of mothers, it can be a time when mothers or mother figures are very important in our life too. So these next few weeks, you may find something that fits that archetype of this energy too. But the biggest issue with Venus in Cancer is that if it's not feeling emotional support, it can get very insecure. And when it gets insecure, it wants to really control its loved ones. And when it starts to control its loved ones, and it's using things like manipulation to do that, and it gets found out, then it actually can drive its loved ones away. So we don't, if we're feeling insecure about relationship or something, the last thing you want to do, if you really want it, to come back and be healthy, is to do that, is to try to like control things and possess the other, basically. But Venus in Cancer, to me, from my experience in Venus with Venus and Cancer, it's a very beautiful energy for the most part. If the person is feeling good, they are really willing to dote on their loved ones. It's a very beautiful, sensitive energy. It's sensitive to the needs of the people we love, our lovers, our family, our friends, and it wants to please them. So it's like I said, it's a doting energy. It's for me, from a perspective that I look at it, we should all have Venus in Cancer friends or lovers, and the world would be a much more harmonious place, as long as they're feeling secure and they're not the type that controls us. But it can be a very, very beautiful expression of how we feel our affection towards our loved ones, and what we're willing to do for them. So, and then Thursday is another big point of this week. We are at the middle of the Mercury retrograde cycle. We get the Mercury Sun inferior conjunction. So this is the conjunction they make while Mercury is actually behind the sun completely. We don't see it in the sky. This is the inferior conjunction. And this is the time, to me, and if you listened to the blog before, I've probably said this before, it's the most interiorized we get during the Mercury retrograde cycle. Part of the Mercury retrograde cycle of the communications becoming like not as clear and stuff is because people do become more interiorized. There is they keep a lot of their feelings and thoughts to themselves compared to the way they normally access. And that's because we're chewing things over. This is a time where we can get to the deepest part of that in the cycle, so we can be the most quiet in expressing how we feel and stuff. But this is a time where we're really like analyzing the thoughts and experiences we've had the last 3 months and what they actually mean to us on a personal level. And, seeing where things kind of maybe didn't work out that well, and seeing where like we could change some of our strategies. So it's in a way, it's like the ending of a cycle where we're like reflecting back on what went on the last few months. And it's also the beginning point of a new cycle with the conjunction, but it's an internal beginning point. It's an abstract beginning point. It's something where, oh, I see how that messed me up. That file should have never gotten out there. What's a new strategy I need to come up with? What's a new way to dealing with this? It's all still internal, right? We're not even ready to speak it out to people that we even trust yet. So, like, it's ultimately, a time where we start to seed that, right? Where we had the seed, but it's not even planted in the ground yet. It's like in the package still, right? It's like, you know, like where's that? Like, how much faith do we have that the seed in the package one day that we plant is going to turn into something that's a lot bigger? But it's really like an apex point, really, for that inner talk and really examining that stuff. So it's a beginning point too. And we see where we need to make some adjustments and changes to the way we approach things. And so it's just starting inside first. And then when Mercury goes direct in another week or two, then we can start to plant the seeds in the ground and start these new things up. So then Thursday and then Friday. Friday is a really big day. Friday is the day that Venus squares the Saturn Neptune conjunction and also quincunxes Pluto. So that's the day. Like I said, I've been saying this for months. We have all the outer planets at the beginning of their signs. And so when an inner planet goes into a new sign, it's most likely going to aspect all those outer planets. So this is the day that Venus, freshly in Cancer, gets to square the Saturn Neptune conjunction, both of them retrograde, and quincunx Pluto, also retrograde. Okay, and so what have I been saying for months now about Saturn Neptune? It is a test of our ideals and whether they're going to stick to reality. And not only that, but a test to see how committed you are to your ideals, because there's no guarantee. There's never been a guarantee. There never will be one, right? Of anything going the way you think it should go on this earth and in this life. It's like constantly adjusting to what's in front of us, right? That's what this is going to be about relationships this week. Realizing that if we have this like Pollyanna view of the ideal relationship, whether that's romantic or familial or friendship or whatever, it's going to fall short in reality. It's not going to come out the way your ideal is. So, the thing is, do you fold? Do you give up? Or do you keep working towards that? That's what Saturn's asking you. It's like, yeah, these ideals Neptune have are great, beautiful stuff. But like reality doesn't work that way. Humans are humans. Human nature is human nature. Instinctual behavior is instinctual behavior, right? And so, like, what this can help us do is figure out who can we build some kind of stable or solid relationship with, who we can talk to about the ideals we have, and find out whether theirs are similar enough that we can work with that. And then we can go to work on it with the square. We can be motivated. We can do that, right? But it also can tell us who is always going to dishearten us, who's always going to confuse us, who's always going to give us like uncommitted kind of energy, right? And so, it's basically telling us, be more realistic about your relationships. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up to be battered by them. Understand that humans are humans, that nobody can, like, live up to some ideal without human nature spilling in and bringing some weakness into that. So, can we ground certain ideals? Can we work with certain people? And people that are operating on that same kind of consciousness that us, that realize the reality of where relationships are and the nature of them and how we all work with that. And can we work with those people and commit to something? And if not, then yeah, it's time to move on. It's time. So this is so much about an evaluation of those things. And it goes with money too. Like, once again, this can be a very difficult time with money. Like, things that you invested in or things that you thought you really believed in may not be paying off in the world of reality. And this can also show the same thing with your creative output. Like, you may be finding, once again, I have these very idealistic ideas about my creativity, like, but I can't seem to get reality to react to them. So it's showing you, yeah, there's some challenges here. And once again, I really think so much of this has to do with how committed people actually are to what they believe in. Like, because if you feel like, oh, this, everything's working against me, and it's never going to work out right, and I just give up. Well, you're not, yeah, you're failing the Saturn test. And it's basically saying, you never really believed in that too much, did you? It was kind of more of a fantasy thing. It was kind of like a Walt Disney movie or something. It really wasn't very real. And so, like, it's really asking us, test, 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 what you're doing. And I think the quincunx to Pluto is going to help us do that. This is going to help us purge the people who are not good for us out, and how, and this will help us figure out who that is, because it brings difficult people into our lives and puts them right in our face and makes us realize we need to stand up for ourselves, or we're going to get power tripped by others, we're going to get emotionally drained by others, we're going to get possessed by others and their energy, and they're going to take it away from you, and we get into domination, subjugation type of stuff, very imbalanced relationship. So the people who are possessive and controlling in your life, Venus Pluto conjuncts will show you who that is. And it's trying to reflect to you a need to break away from them, and also to show you where you might be doing that to other people too. And you know that where you need to let go about possibly being too possessive of others and not allowing them to be themselves. And you know what? When you purge things out, and I've said this before, and this is in relation to relationships, if you get rid of the old relationships that are like that difficult and causing you a lot of stuff, that allows creative change to come in and bring in new relationships that can be very transformative to you. So once again, you can apply this to money and creativity too. Like, you know, there may be things in your money situation that are blocking you from being able to, you know, get it moving forward right in the real world. So like it's like you got to take a look at that, you know. Is there certain things you need to just give up on that are not working so that it allows something else to come in? And the same with our creativity. If you're feeling creative blocks, you know, or feeling that your creativity is not successful, then you need to look at it here and say to yourself, where are things, what's blocking this? It's, you know, what's causing this to happen, and what can I move on to? And then Saturday, I don't have it on the board, one last aspect this week, we got Mars quincunxing stationary Chiron also. So this weekend coming up, be very careful physically about how you put your energy out. You can really mess yourself up. This one shows you can overexert yourself, easily injure yourself. If you're an athlete, you know, be very careful, especially during Mercury retrograde too. Poor decision making out to the physical body. Ouch. Now I'm hurt. Now I'm injured. So you really want to take care of your body next weekend. Listen to it, you know. And if you start reacting out of anger or irritation, which Mars has a tendency to do, especially with Chiron, because old wounds may be being poked at and have you like boom, then you can really overreact. Not only hurt yourself physically, but damage your reputation too, you know. So you got to be really careful about your actions and your words and stuff coming out of faulty beliefs and faulty suppositions and thinking, you know, and then just ending up hurting yourself more because of that. It can really end up disconnecting you from other people if you do that. So just be really, really aware of that. So the monthly thing, there's not a lot going on this month. The only planet changing direction in August is Mercury, when it will go direct on August 11th at 4 degrees Leo. And I talked a lot about the Mercury retrograde cycle last week and the week before, and I'll get back when it turns direct in a couple weeks. I'll be talking about that a lot more in detail again, but that's really the only planet changing direction. So really the main thing I want to talk about this week is, you know, the 4 planets, the outer planets, you know, and the dance that they're having now. They've all changed signs recently, and they're going retrograde now. Uranus isn't going retrograde yet. It just went into Gemini and it's still moving forward, but it will go retrograde really soon in early September. So, like, you know, basically they're all the others, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and now Chiron, too, even, are all moving backwards now, retrograde, and they all move slowly, right? So they're all going back to their exact second hits of the aspects they have. The Saturn and Neptune are conjunct one another, and then they're both sextiling Pluto, and then they're both going to end up hitting Uranus too. Again, when Uranus catches up with them. So this is like a month of where we're really deep into that retrograde cycle of these guys. And it's really a continuation of the energy that's been going on all spring with the tight conjunctions. But now we're really getting to see the effects of that. Like we're really starting to see like how like a lot of the ideals aren't fitting into reality well in society, how it could actually be dividing people and bringing out a lot more intensity, you know. So, you know, Uranus is going to tighten up to that. And, you know, and remember, that Saturn Neptune sextile has been going on for decades, you know. So, you know, this is a time, you know, where, you know, it really shows that divisive energy is really one of the big things going on out there, that people can get very one sided in their mind. And what happens when we do that? It makes us blind to half of the stuff trying to get in, you guys. You know, it really does. And, you know, so we get stuck. You know, we're the authors of our own fall. We get very egotistical, very stubborn with this energy. We even allow our hatred to come out. You know, we even act out on our, you know, on the fear and hatred that we have, you know. So we have to be really, really, really careful with this energy. You know, we can really be feeling pressured right now to react to situations, and there's voices of separation really trying to push us, and yet at the same time underneath it all there's still this energy of trying to show us great insights not only into ourselves and our own nature but into how other people operate too, in general, basically human nature. It's trying to teach us who we truly are, you know, individually and collectively, and to remember that, you know, and you know, take that, you know, start to remember that energy and bring that energy into the world if we can, you know. Once again, Saturn's asking us, how committed are we to that, you know? So right now it can be really hard to see. You know, the world's in a very difficult place collectively, you know, and I know a lot of people, you know, are feeling that in their own life. And, you know, this is helping us to try to understand, you know, through this uncertainty, you know, what our true nature is and what humans' true nature is, and come to a deeper understanding of that and what our expectations are. And, you know, whether we're really truly willing to work on those ideals or not. So this is all really reaching this retrograde apex energy all month long, where it's really gonna get be seen in the outer world how much we can struggle when, you know, as a society and collectively when we're not doing that. And it can be brought right down to our own inner lives, you know, also. Now, also, right at the end of the month, one other thing I wanted to mention is Jupiter is semi square Uranus right at the end of August. And what do those two have in common? Freedom. You know, that's one of these things where, you know, there can be a lot of impatience with others or restrictions. Anything coming from other people or situations that are restricting us can really feel very frustrating, and we may shake things up just for the sake of shaking things up, become very disruptive, you know. And we can see this definitely on a societal scale with Jupiter being a society planet, a social planet. It really wants to push it out, bring change into society based on the frustration that people have. And I think everyone's having that. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Maybe that's, you know, the whole lesson of this is to stop choosing sides, that we're all feeling this energy in the same way. We now get a better understanding once again of what that means to us personally and how that works in other people too, so that we can maybe come up with some new solutions, maybe come up to get better understandings of ourselves and move on from there. So that's what we got going on. We're really deep in the middle of it. And of course, during the Mercury retrograde part, it's really coming in. But yeah, this week, Venus going into Cancer, I think, you know, once we can decide which people we want to rely on and be committed to, that can be a very helpful energy. We can be very, very supportive of one another's emotional needs. Okay, guys, that's what I got for this week. Now, next week, we've got a full moon for sure. This first week of August, the 4th through the 10th, you're going to get a full moon at 17 degrees of Aquarius next Saturday. So that's going to be a big thing. And then Mars is also changing signs next week. And what does that mean, right? It's going to hit all those outer planets again. Mars is actually going to go into Libra, which is not a sign that Mars is very comfortable in, but it gives an opportunity for certain people to possibly get their energy out there and maybe bring some balance back too. So I'll be talking about that next week. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. You're going to pass the link on to somebody else in your contacts right now, even if you've done it before. Please become a follower if you're not already and you have a YouTube account. Don't forget to check out the website. I really want to do your chart or some chart work for you or someone that you love. I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of very happy customers, and would love to do that for you. Please check out the website and do natal chart readings, predictive relocation, all kinds of stuff. If you need to work in payments on the cost, I can do that with you. If you have a group that needs a lecture or workshop, things like that, check the website out. I'm available for that. If you're a student, I have beginner podcast classes. I'm also looking for more beginner students for a live class. If you need tutoring, I can do that too. So yeah, all kinds of services available. That's really the best way to support me. If you want to give a currency donation to the blog, no amount is too small. My Venmo is at Matthew with two T's hyphen Lawton, L-A-U-T-N, Cash App, $ Matthew with two T's, Lawton, all one word, L-A-U-T-N. Thanks so much again, folks, for tuning in. Hope to see you all next week. We'll talk about that full moon.